Hey gentlemen, this is Vince Miller. Thank you so much for joining me for this devotional. Today we are in 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 2, which you're going to hear a few times, by the way, as we navigate through these qualifications of leaders in the church. I'll read a few more words for you today. It begins, therefore, an overseer or an elder or a leader must be, here's the first one, above reproach. So to understand the first quality of a leader in the church, we need to know what the word reproach means, because it's kind of a strange word. We don't use it all the time. And a suitable synonym or comparative word might be something like criticism. So in conjunction with the adverb above, it would mean a potential leader who is above criticism. Now, this qualification is a little tricky given our times, isn't it? Because criticism is like weaponized against everybody. I mean, being 30 days out from a midterm election, all you got to do is listen to the radio, watch television, or look down at a text message that comes across your phone to hear messages of criticism about other leaders. So we have to clarify a bit the intent of this qualification, because it's not just general criticism. So what does Paul mean here and not mean by being above criticism? So let's agree that he's not suggesting to Timothy that there are leaders of perfect character in Ephesus and that he needs to go find them. If that had been the case, well, Timothy would never have been able to find any leaders for the church in Ephesus. That's because no one is without sin. I mean, Paul himself said in another text of the Romans, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. That's pretty much everybody. Everybody. So Paul is not inferring perfection of character that results in zero criticism. Instead, I think the spirit of this qualification in context with some good theology would suggest that Timothy needs to locate redeemed men who have addressed and reconciled the sin and the suffering in their life, first with God and then with other people. Therefore, they are above criticism. And if you want to know what this looks like in a man's life, just read another one of Paul's letters. It's called the book of Philemon. Paul makes Onesimus, who is in context a runaway slave, go back and reconcile his unaddressed departure with his owner Philemon, who was a believer, a follower of Jesus Christ. And as history tells us, Onesimus returns and he reconciles this issue with Philemon, and then he becomes, guess what? An elder or a leader in the first century church with a lot of impact, by the way. That's the spirit of the qualification here. Paul is describing a man's effort to tend to anything that might be a criticism in his life. He is a man who doesn't leave suffering caused by his sin unaddressed in his life. Instead, he is someone who has done and is willing to do the hard work as much as humanly possible to deal with issues that might lead to some public criticism. So this man has to be able to basically do two things. First, he's got to be able to receive God's grace for the reproach of his sin. And second, be willing and able to work through the reproach his sin has inflicted on others. This is not describing a perfect man or leader here, but someone who will give a full effort above and beyond in the event of any criticism. So here is another example that I think illustrates the spirit of this qualification. It's actually Paul himself. Paul was formerly a reproach in his sin to the church. In fact, in this book right here in 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 13, Paul said, formerly I was a blasphemer and a persecutor and an insolent opponent, but I received mercy because I had acted ignorantly in unbelief. So Paul was formerly a reproach to the church, but when he wrote this book right here, he was the church's most significant leader. So he's not looking for perfect men. He is looking for imperfect men indwelled by the Spirit who are willing to work through their ignorance and issues, thus fighting to stay above the criticism. Now, I do want to recognize that in some special circumstances, remaining above criticism is going to be challenging, maybe for some of you, if not impossible to overcome. In these special circumstances, reconciliation for you might not be possible. It might be impossible. Therefore, staying above criticism is also impossible, at least in a human sense. Now, I would say this would disqualify you from leadership in the church. But this doesn't mean you should give up giving a full, above the bar effort to receive God's grace daily and then work to stay above the criticism. But you might not be able to be a leader in the church, at least for a period of time, if ever. And one more little nuance on this qualification. Sometimes you're not going to be able to stay above criticism for standing up for your faith. In fact, Paul was known for being a troublemaker. I mean, just read the book of Acts. In fact, in Ephesus, he stirred up a riot. And a big one with thousands of people. Trouble seemed to follow him everywhere, didn't it? And religious and government leaders publicly criticized him all the time. But, it was never for ungodly character. It was for preaching the gospel message. So know this, at some point, if you're a leader in the church, you will be criticized. I get it all the time. And you should be criticized. But if it's an issue of godly character, you got to stay above it and on it. If it's for preaching the gospel, well then, just suffer through it. That's how it works. Guys, I hope this blesses you today. I hope you'll work on it today. If you've got something lingering in your life, deal with it. That's the point of this text. And if you're called to leadership in the church, then, well, you got to figure out how to stay above it. I love you guys. We'll see you right back here again.